Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is Zeno here once again with Suns Fan doing another top 10, but not really a top 10 list. Here are the top 10 things that we absolutely hate about Overwatch as it is right now. Suns Fan, how's it going?
Hi Zeno. We should preface this entire video by saying some of the stuff we don't really hate. It's more things that can be improved upon because of the fact that it's in beta. But as there have been new developments over the weeks, there are some things that we absolutely hate now. But let's start at number 10. Right now there is no spectator mode, and by that there is technically one if you're in the lobby or in the same game as somebody, but there's nothing allowing me as a public person to just go onto a random game and watch a game. Which I think if they have that, it'll improve the watchability, I think that's a word, of Overwatch quite a bit. It'll help the casting scene, which I think will be great for a professional scene that eventually will come to this game, or at least we hope so. So adding more UI and functionality in general to the spectator mode is going to make a huge difference for bringing exciting games to viewers.
And here at number 9, in Overwatch a lot of the heroes start to feel the same, or they play a lot of the same roles. And Blizzard's kind of stated that balancing each and every hero to have them like competitively viable is not really their long-term goal, as long as all the heroes are viable in like some situations. But there are some heroes that are just kind of like, you know, Soldier 76, for example, is a very well-rounded sort of basic hero, which is kind of nice for, you know, people sort of getting introduced to the game, but it's not really very good at any one thing. And then you just kind of end up with like these heroes that are sort of like, they're good, but you would always replace them with a different hero in a team lineup. So I think, you know, in the long run, as they add more heroes, that's going to be more and more of an issue.
Coming in at number 8, there are currently no replays, and this is something that we think they'll eventually add, but we don't want them to forget about it, so we want to mention it here. Do not go the League of Legends route. Replays help share the game, and it's huge for the competitive scene in general, which is something we've touched upon before. I mean, as an example for both you and I, Zeno, we got a lot better at Counter-Strike by being able to watch replays. I mean, that's something that was literally over a decade ago, so there's no reason they shouldn't have it for Overwatch.
Yeah, I agree. Like, we used to go to Gotfrag all the time and download like demos from pro players, and I think that was kind of like the original thing that got me going in competitive Counter-Strike. And, you know, now you have streamers and stuff, so you have more access to that kind of content, but I feel like getting your hands on the replays themselves is still an important thing to have in any game that wants to be competitive.
And not to mention, it's actually going to explode the YouTube scene and just media content, just creating content in general, because we'll have access to these things and we can make highlights and whatnot. So this channel will have even more content than before.
Alright, at number 7, we have the gameplay needs a little bit more variety. You know, right now, they're basically saying that we're kind of comfortable with sort of the game how it is right now, with the maps and with the game modes and also with the heroes. But I think the problem is you basically have these games that are very fast, so you play a lot of them, and then at a certain point you kind of start to see the same things over and over again. You have the capture points and the payloads, but it gets kind of repetitive. And when you have other games like HOTS or Dota 2 that have a wide variety of game modes, and you can have like random heroes or different kind of scenarios or situations, it sort of contrasts with that, I think, a lot.
And I want to make one point about that for the point capture maps. It just seems very generic. Pretty much every single time as the defending team, you're going to lose the first point, because it's impossible to get it back once they've taken over that area. You respawn in base, you have to walk an infinite amount of time back to it, and you're just going to lose it at that point. And it seems like that happens every game, and that, I think, needs to be tweaked. The payload is perfectly fine. Even the hybrid maps are perfectly fine. I have no issue with them whatsoever, but currently the point capture needs a little bit of a change to maybe have the defensive team have the capability of retaking point A, because if most of the game is just one team defending a choke point at point B, which is the last point, games just become super generic. So I think that needs to change. But coming in at number 6 on the things we hate about Overwatch, the same heroes and maps in the near future. This is something coming from the devs, where on release date, everything that's in the game now, other than maybe small tweaks that may come in the near future, basically everything you see is what you get. So basically that just means they're happy with the amount of heroes and everything that's in the game as is. And we're in November right now. Let's come spring 2016. I'm pretty sure some of these heroes are going to feel pretty stale.
And I hate to bring this up, but when Evolve came out, you know, that was a game where conceptually it was pretty interesting, but the game itself, by the time it got released, was so bare boned that they like added in additional stuff as DLC, but also made you pay for it. and that's something we're probably going to talk about a little bit later on this list too. And people got really kind of sick of it, and it also killed the community. So I'm hoping that things aren't quite that basic upon release as they were with games like Evolve. And now we find ourselves at number 5 with the lack of diverse supports in the game. Now, right now, even with the addition of the new heroes, there's really only 4 support heroes. And I think the thing that I really miss when I'm playing a healer is like a sense of some sort of skill-based heal where you feel like you can do something really well and be better at it than someone else. And right now with Mercy, it's just sort of like an automatic thing. With Lucio, it's just like a AoE heal. So I would like to see some sort of like aimed AoE heal, like something like they used to have in like Bloodline Champions if you played that. I think something like that would make the game pretty interesting. So I would like to see maybe a little bit more diversity in the healing supports in the game.
And the number 4 thing we hate about Overwatch is the multi-platform release. And by that we mean it's going to be released onto Xbox One, PS4, and the PC, which is fine, but the fact that there's no cross-platform support means that people have to choose whether they want to play it on each of those systems, because you can't play the other people, which in some sense is okay, because obviously the PC side, they're going to destroy the console side, right? But it still divides the community in 3 segments, which kind of sucks. If there's going to be a competitive scene in Overwatch, it's obviously going to be catered around the PC, but the fact that it's going to be kind of segregated upsets me to a small degree.
Yeah, and I think that there's 2 major components of this that are sort of crappy. One is that you see in the past with Blizzard, where they had Diablo 3 on the console and on the PC, they basically ended up dividing development of that game into 2 different paths. And that was kind of necessary because the console played a little bit differently, but then you sort of ended up with this sort of like lack of focus, where it's like if you just took all of that development and put it on one game, it would have been way better, and they probably would have got to a better Diablo 3 faster. And then I think the other thing is, I see this a lot with other games where all my friends will be like, oh, we really want to play, I hate to say this because I don't really like the game, but Call of Duty or Borderlands 2 together, whatever it happens to be. And then some people might want to play it on PC and other people might want to play it on Xbox, and you sort of end up with like having to make this decision on how are we all going to play as a group when we all want to play on different platforms. And to me, that's kind of an unfortunate thing. And coming in at number 3 is a lack of a persistent ranking or achievement system. Now, we've played a lot of other games where you have a rank, and even Blizzard games, you have games like StarCraft 2, where the rank is kind of a pretty important aspect of the game. And it kind of seems like in any competitive multiplayer, that's sort of necessary. Right now, we're playing a whole bunch of games, and you get like these cool achievements, you get play of the game, and then the game's over in like 10 minutes, and nobody cares. And once you start playing a lot of these games and they do kind of start to run together, it's kind of like, what am I actually progressing towards at this point? You know, there's no ranked matchmaking or anything like that. So I think that's something they really need to look at having, and we're not really sure if it's going to be in the game at launch or not. So I think that's kind of an issue as far as making the game, kind of adding to the replayability of the game, actually.
Yeah, but you love it when I upvote your cards at the end of the game, man. It makes you feel so good about yourself, and then 10 seconds later, you don't give a shit anymore. Well, this next one, which is number 2 on the list of hated things of Overwatch, this was a huge debate for us internally as well, whether this should be number 1 or not. For now, we're going to keep it at number 2. You guys can let us know if we're wrong. It's the Blizzard evasiveness on the payment model. So basically what it comes down to is it's not free to play, which is fine, because that means you can control cheaters and all that good stuff, but they dodged a lot of questions at BlizzCon about what they will be adding after the release. They've emphasized so much. There's not going to be a hero store on release, which that doesn't really mean anything for us. That just means they can come out with something later. Is there going to be DLC? The thing that will absolutely kill this game, especially from the competitive side of things, is if you have to purchase heroes afterwards. Going down the League of Legends route, I think, is a huge mistake. Even if you start off with a nice pool of characters, which you have right now, eventually people are going to want more, and spending money on that I think is a huge mistake if you want to make this game competitively viable, which Blizzard has said in the past is one of their priorities. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see if that's actually true.
Alright, and finally, coming in at number 1, and this might be pandering to the crowd just a little bit, but not enough beta invites. And right now, you know, there's a really small player pool in Overwatch. I know, you know, on social media and stuff, a lot of people have joked that it should just be called Only Watch because people get to watch it but not actually play it. And even from a selfish point of view, as someone that's currently playing the game, the player pool is so small that it makes it kind of hard to do matchmaking, especially if you're partnered up with like 1 or 2 other people. It can take, 10, 15, 20 minutes to even get into a game if it's late at night or in off hours. And I really think that when you have so many fans that are so invested into Blizzard and the lore and all the different games, and when they feel left out, and then they also feel like such a small amount of people are getting into the game that they're probably never going to get in, it's kind of like a downer for them, and then you start to feel demotivated and you lose momentum for a game that I think a lot of people are very excited about, just 2 weeks ago. And they still are, of course, but I think more people should just be let in, have a good time, open up some more servers, and I think it'll be good for everyone.
I think the effects of this have come into play already. I mean, it's not even a top 10 watched on Twitch anymore at all. And a lot of that's just the hype dying because people can't play it. And the other thing you have to keep in mind, it's actually a huge advantage for certain players that have access now, because if you want to be a pro player, you have this much more time to become acclimated to the game and get your name out there, to even become a big streamer for that matter. We've seen that already with Overwatch and other games. So that's another thing to keep in mind. We're hoping that a lot of more beta keys will come in the very near future, though.
Alright, and that wraps up our top 10 things that we hate about Overwatch. Now, of course, that's more of like a needs improvement list if we want to be a little kind about it, because quite frankly, the game's still pretty good. I'm sure there are things that people disagree with or other things that you might want to add. Feel free to leave your comments, and I'll make sure that Sunsfan reads them all and gets back to me on
Fuck that! Just kidding, guys. Love you.